I never regret buying anything anymore. And I also almost never regret not buying something anymore either. Do you know this feeling when you go through your wardrobe or your stuff at home and you feel like, was this really necessary? But it costs so much money. I hold on to it a little bit longer. If yes, I know it too. But in the past few years, I personally developed a few buying principles. It's almost like a little checklist I go through in my head before I buy something, and that has worked very well for me. Since then, I'm spending my money much more mindfully, and I don't regret buying something, and I don't regret not buying something either. So let me share my buying principles with you. Maybe they inspire you too in one way or another. If you're new here, I'm Sophia. I'm a doctor from Germany and I love to talk about money and building wealth. And I think spending money is a skill. It's a skill we should learn to master our personal finances because it's all connected. Saving money, growing our money, and also spending our money. So here are my buying principles. Number 1 is the 100% rule. Now, a couple of years ago when I went to a store and I saw a nice thing and I tried it on and I would think, yeah, this is okay. And oh, it's just $20. Then I would buy it. That's not how I buy anymore. For me now, it has to be, wow, this piece is beautiful. And when I try it on, no matter what it is, like clothes or accessories or anything, it has to fit me perfectly. Not something like, okay, maybe this will fit in summer. It has to fit perfectly now. I have to feel comfortable in it. And I have to feel like, wow, this feels amazing. And also this suits me amazing. So it has to be 100%, and if it's not, then I don't buy it. And another aspect that added to this 100% rule is that I recently discovered color theory. Yes, admittedly, I haven't heard of it before. As a matter of fact, I stumbled upon it when I was researching for my brand, like the Sophia Finn brand, you know, when I have to decide what colors I want to use on this channel. Because apparently it also helps you guys to find out if what I'm saying and doing here and also what, you know, the overall color theme is, if that is something that resonates with you or not. But it's not just that, it actually helped me to figure out what I identify with myself. So I definitely am learning a lot here. And how color theory works is basically that you have 3 different categories. Those are temperature, saturation, and brightness. Or to use the professional language, it's hue, value, and chroma. And then in each you have a spectrum between light and dark, warm and cool, and soft and bright. And then you basically map yourself out on a color wheel. And I apparently am a dark autumn. And when I look at the color palette of dark autumn, I feel at ease. It sounds weird, but I just like to look at the color. For me, it's very harmonic. And this has an impact on my wardrobe too. All the flashy colors that were still in there, but didn't feel like me anymore, they're gone now. And by the way, it also saves me a lot of time because when I go into a store right now, this color thing eliminates at least 50% of all the things that are hanging there, because I already know those colors are not for me. And it also has the advantage that, at least I think so, the colors match better together. Buying principle number 2 is state of the art. Now, this doesn't apply to everything, but most of the time when I need something or I want something, I research for quite a lot of time and then I find out what's the best thing. Either the best thing on the market or what's the best thing for my special needs. One example is when smartphones became a thing, but there were still alternatives. The first one I bought was a rather cheap one from Samsung. And it was nice in the beginning, but then, you know, a couple of weeks or a couple of months in, I realized, okay, this is becoming slow very quickly. And then I got gifted an iPhone 4. I pretty much fell in love with it because, I don't know, it was just easy to handle. It was a beautiful design. I could use it for a pretty long time. And since then, I never looked back. So for me personally, state of the art in tech when it comes to phones and also when it comes to laptops and other things, it's Apple for me. When I buy one, I buy the newest version with an adequate storage and I keep them for 4 or more years. So I had the iPhone 4, then I had the iPhone 7, and now I have the iPhone 12. And if you would ask me right now what phone you should get, first I would ask you what your buying principles are. I would probably recommend to just go in the store and test and see which one you like. Also read some test reviews and watch videos about it. And I would not recommend for you to get this one. So this is the iPhone 12 Pro Max. But by now it's just pretty old. That's why I'm also not linking it in the video description. If I would buy a new phone right now, now, I would buy the iPhone 15 Pro Max and I would pay it outright. But this one's still fine, so I'm not gonna get a new one. Buying principle number 3, and this relates a little bit to the story I just told you, is to test small. Now, obviously, buying state-of-the-art can be very expensive, and if I'm not sure, I test small, or in other words, cheap. So my mom wanted to get me a graduation present for graduating from med school, and she wanted to buy me a watch, a Swiss mechanical watch. And she told me this 1 or 2 years before I graduated, and up until that time, I was never wearing a watch in my life. And because Swiss mechanical watches are pretty expensive, I wanted to make sure that I would actually use it. You know, if it's even my thing to wear a watch. So I wanted to test it, and what I did, I tested small or tested cheap. And then I got myself this. And this here is basically the test version, and this here then was the actual gift. And don't get me wrong, this is not a cheap watch. It was still 100 something euros. And I also still applied the 100% rule. So I researched at least a few weeks, if not a few months for this, and tried on many different watches before I bought it. But still, this is way less expensive than this one. So that's why I call it the test version. And I still find it beautiful, and I'm still wearing it. So now I have 3 watches, this one, and my Apple Watch. Now, if you are not sure if you should subscribe to this channel, why don't you give it a try? It's totally free and you can unsubscribe anytime. And that brings me to buying principle number 3, and that is don't stray. Now, by don't stray, I mean that I usually try to stay within one brand or a few brands when it comes to certain categories. So in tech, like I already mentioned, I have a lot of stuff from Apple because it just works together frictionless. In the kitchen, for example, I have a lot of the things from WMF. It's a very old German brand. It's founded in 1853. That's a pretty long time for a brand. And you know, they make high quality stainless steel stuff. And if I'm looking for something in the kitchen, this is the first place I look for it. And I think there's different reasons for that. The first one is that I've just made good experiences with the brand. Also from a design perspective, you know, all their things look similar. And for me personally, that is very aesthetically pleasing. So I don't really like to open my shelf and to have many different looking things inside. Like opening it and having the feeling that, you know, it all fits together nicely really gives me that sense of ease. It's like I feel at peace. It also saves me a lot of time because when I feel like I need something or I want something, that's the first place I look. And if I find it there, then I buy it. And then there's no need for me to go to 10 different other stores or research online for hours and hours to find the same thing. And of course, one thing I do have to mention here, I think, is that if I do research, I do very extended research. In these past few weeks, for example, I was researching skincare and makeup. To be honest, I've never used much makeup in the past except for mascara and lipstick. But now that I'm making videos, it sort of becomes relevant because I have this huge light here shining on me and I don't want you to be, you know, blinded by the shine of my skin because of the sunscreen I wear. So yeah, that's the reason I looked up all these makeup brands to make it matte, and I only put natural and clean products on my skin. So it's not like just me walking into a Sephora or whatever makeup store and buy everything that I, you know, find pretty. So I did heavy research which brands really don't use any microplastic, any silicones, any parabens and stuff like that because it's just important to me. And oh my god, is this a non-transparent market? Because they all use labels like clean and vegan and cruelty-free and sustainable, but that doesn't mean that it's all equal. A vegan brand can still use microplastic, and good for the environment also doesn't necessarily mean that it's also good for your skin. And I am so glad that I finally found like a handful of brands that from their concept, from their branding, I really trust them. They fit my personal criteria and now I'm gonna stick with them. So I invested all this time once and hopefully can, you know, save this time now further down the line. If that resonates with you, would love if you could drop a like. And of course there are exceptions to this rule, to this like don't stray rule. If I don't find anything fitting, I look elsewhere. And also, of course, sometimes I experiment, you know, just to like broaden the horizon and I see what else there is and test again. I especially like to do that during vacations because then I really take the time to go into the store and to look what's like on the market. But for the most part, my like everyday life is covered by this rule, don't stray. And this also saves me a lot of decision fatigue. Do you also get this, that when you walk into the store, you're just overwhelmed and exhausted by all the choice you have? So yeah, for the most part, I try to limit my choices to the things that are relevant for me, and then I stick with them. Now, because I'm a finance channel, the one thing I want to mention here where brand loyalty can really hurt you is when it comes to saving and investing. Because saving costs when you choose your bank or your brokerage account or your savings account or whatever should definitely be more important than brand loyalty. Because costs in this area of your personal finances are not just, a one-time purchase. They are recurring every month over the course of years, if not decades, and they really add up. So always watch out what you're optimizing for. My fifth buying principle is quality over quantity. So I rather buy more expensive and have one thing instead of less expensive and I have 10 things. And I had a very funny comment on one of my last videos, which was, buy expensive, cry once, buy cheap, cry often. And that describes it very well. And I think part of this principle for me is also go with the classics. Or at least I think I start with the classics. For example, my first designer brand was not a seasoned color like grapefruit orange or ocean blue. It was a color that goes with everything. So a very neutral color. And that doesn't just go for the color, that goes for the design as well. The Levi's 501 blue jeans, for example, has been around since 1873. So this is one that will not suddenly go out of season or go out of trend. It still sells today. And what better to spend your money on than something that you can still wear in 100 years from now? My buying principle number 6 is compatibility. And that simply is, how does the thing fit into the rest of all the things that I have. So I can see something, for example, on someone else that I find absolutely beautiful, and then maybe I even try it, but then when I really think deep and it doesn't fit with any of the other things I own, then I don't buy it and I let it go. And buying principle number 7 is delay. Now, from the stories I've told you, you already know that I do heavy research. So I look it up mostly on the internet. I look up the different options, and how much time I let go by before I buy the thing depends on how expensive it is and also what it is. If it's not food or something else I need on a daily basis, I let go by at least 1 or 2 days. And the more expensive, the more time I take. And this can be sometimes weeks, sometimes months, sometimes even years. And I have another example. Let me get it right now. So in 2019, I bought this weekender. It's from Eddie Harrop. I think the brand doesn't even exist anymore. And this is quite an expensive weekender. I think I paid between 800 and 900 pounds. I think translates to, about 1,000 euros. And I think I looked at this thing for 2 years before I bought it. I researched all the weekenders there are to research. I looked through different websites, and I also kept looking over and over at this one to see if I grow tired of it. But I didn't. Eventually I got it, and I'm still very happy with it. I love the design, I love the texture, it's leather, I love the zipper here and these little details. That probably summarizes pretty well how my buying process looks like. And it's really very, very rare that I walk into the store and I see something I've never seen before and I buy it immediately because it convinces me 100%. It does happen, but it's very rare. So that was an insight into my personal shopping life. I would love to hear how your shopping life looks like, so feel free to leave a comment. If you want to hear more about personal stories like this, also realizations and tips and tricks about personal finances and building wealth, you can sign up for my weekly newsletter. It's completely for free. You can cancel anytime. There's a link down below. Now that you learned my buying principle, you might also want to know about my savings and investing system. I explain it in detail in this video here. Thank you for watching this far. I hope you got some value out of this, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye bye.